Good evening to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook video for today, Sunday, July 20th, 2025. Let's start off with the National Hurricane Center homepage to our area of interest here in the Atlantic. Invest 94L now, it's been tagged this afternoon, and it only has a low chance of development as of the latest 8 p.m. tropical weather outlook, which was literally released minutes ago. Roughly 7:17 p.m. Eastern time, so about 13-14 minutes from the time that we're recording it now, which is 7:31 p.m. Eastern time. And it's also definitely, I will say, a later time that we're recording this outlook at. Usually I record this earlier on in the day, and I apologize for that, but at least I'm getting a video out to you for today. But we have Invest 94L here in the Atlantic. Low chance of development, 20% in the next 48 hours and 7 days for potential development. And this likely will probably not become a tropical system as it moves on to the west-northwest here as we head into the beginning of this week. Conditions are probably not going to be favorable enough for this to be able to develop. And models did downtrend, especially from earlier on this weekend, especially yesterday and Friday, when they were very aggressive on showing potentially a weak depression or something like that trying to spin up. But still, nonetheless, it is a sign that these waves, as I've been saying, are becoming more aggressive out here in the Eastern Atlantic, and we are now in the last third of the month of July. We are getting closer and closer towards August, closer and closer towards the peak. This is definitely a sign that things are becoming more favorable and the season is beginning to change. Here's the latest look at the satellite imagery of Invest 94L out here in the Eastern Atlantic, and you can see there's definitely some convective activity with it. And if you actually look at the tropical weather outlook, the National Hurricane Center did note that there is more concentrated convective activity today. There is seemingly some sort of circulation with this system, but obviously, as you can see, lots of dry air to the north. And that's certainly going to play a factor over the next several days as we are tracking the system and it moves on off here to the west-northwest. And just to kind of further the point about the circulation, you can see here on the 850 millibar vorticity, definitely has a decent vorticity signature associated with it. So there's definitely a circulation of some sort. There is spin in the atmosphere strong enough that this definitely has some sort of low pressure that is, trackable. And it's just a matter of, if this is able to somehow consolidate and become what will probably be a weak and a small tropical system out here in the Western MDR. We'll just have to see over the next several days if it's able to do so. And you can see here as well on the surface analysis, I think as of 18Z, out of the tropical analysis and forecast branch, you could see we do have that low pressure here. They actually haven't marked in the southern MDR here associated with 94L. But of course, the biggest struggle, and this will probably be the thing that prohibits it from being able to develop, and I mentioned this a minute earlier, look at all the Saharan air that we have to the north of the system. And it is definitely going to have a limiting role on 94L. Lots of this dry air, especially since it's going to be a small system. If it does indeed develop, which, as again I've said, the models have kind of downtrended from that solution. A lot of dry air that's going to be able to easily get into the system and probably prohibit it from actually being able to develop and become a decent tropical system. But I guess you could suppose that a weak system is still not completely out of the realm of possibility. Sea surface temperatures, at least in the MDR and the western and central MDR, are warm enough for sure for development. And shear-wise, I think this system will have some good shear as well, which is why I think the chances for development are even being talked about in the first place. But I'm going to show you here on the GFS model, at least on the 18Z GFS, just really quickly to bring it through here. You could see where this vorticity area is. Tries to consolidate a little bit, But really, at least on the 18Z GFS, all it does remain is just a strong tropical wave that ends up kind of moving through the central and western MDR here over the next several days before eventually it reaches the Caribbean islands as we head into Wednesday, and then eventually just kind of moves through the Caribbean and doesn't really become a trackable feature anymore. But then, very interestingly enough, this is something that I've noticed on the 18Z GFS today, is right behind it here in the MDR, especially as we get towards day 5, 6, and 7. Look at that, another tropical wave right behind Invest 94L here, at least being indicated on the GFS, tries to consolidate. And at least on the GFS in this model run, the 18Z, it successively seemingly is able to consolidate and probably become a weak tropical system. Now, whether or not that'll hold remains to be seen, but it is interesting that another wave does try even after 94L fails. And I'll even show you here in closing as the final thing before we wrap up today's video, the ECMWF, the Euro model ensembles, also seem to hint at that. Obviously, going through the full model run first over the first few days, we have our low feature here in the West Central MDR that, you know, tries to develop but probably will fail to do so. But then over here, coming from the eastern, just east of that in the eastern MDR, you notice another low system that has a few ensemble members and a few members that are actually stronger here to the east. So the Euro ensemble is also showing something trying to develop as well behind Invest 94L here in the MDR, and they too are more aggressive on it, potentially trying to consolidate and maybe being more successful and maybe developing and becoming a weak tropical system before the month is over. So bottom line, what I'm trying to say is the chances for development might not be over for the end of this month. We might have something else that might try to develop as we head into this week in the MDR, even if 94L fails to do so, and we'll certainly monitor that over the next several days and see how that pans out. But obviously, though, none of these systems are expected to become any strong, significant, powerful hurricanes, especially like we would see in late August and early September. None of them are expected to do that, which is obviously a good thing. And it looks like, at least for the next foreseeable future, it'll stay that way. I mean, it is still only late July after all, so we don't really expect that for now. Not until late August and September is when we get those big, long track, powerful hurricanes that develop in the MDR. Of course, with last year being the exception. But we are weeks away from that. It's only a matter of time before that happens. And the point that I've been really trying to make over the last several days with these area of interests developing here is that it is a sign that things are becoming more favorable, and the seasons are changing, especially now as we are beginning to close out the month of July, or at least we will close it out soon, and we will head into August, and conditions will soon become more favorable for those more powerful, long-tracked MDR storms to develop. And just, again, putting the point out there that those storms are only weeks away, and we are only weeks away before the Atlantic really, really ramps up and kicks up in activity. So please keep that in mind. With that being said, though, I'm going to end it off for today since there's not much else to go over. There's a few stuff in the East Pack, but I guess we'll just go over that tomorrow since it's not really posing any major threat, at least as of right now. But we're going to end it off here for today. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.